I knew something was wrong the moment the glass slipped from her hand and didn't shatter. It should have shattered. It hit the hardwood at an angle that would have sent shards everywhere, but instead it rolled, like the universe wasn't done humiliating me yet. Marla didn't even look down at it. She just stared ahead, frozen, like someone pressed pause on her face, but not on her heartbeat. I could hear her chest rising too fast, like she'd sprinted up 12 flights of stairs. And all I said was, "Why were you there?" That was it. For words. Not even dramatic ones. Not even angry. My voice cracked halfway through like some middle schooler at choir practice. But those 4 words turned her into stone. And me? I felt like mud, soft, messy, stepped on. The room smelled like burnt cinnamon because I tried one of those aroma sticks TikTok said would make a home feel calm. It didn't. It made my eyes water, which would have been convenient for hiding the fact that I already wanted to cry. She opened her mouth, slow, too slow. And instead of answering, she whispered it. Not now, barely audible, like she wasn't talking to me, but to the universe, begging it to delay something inevitable. My throat tightened so fast I actually coughed, which made the moment 10 times more pathetic. She didn't even flinch. I waited. Silence. I waited more. Still silence. And then something inside me, something tiny, brittle, exhausted, just folded. Not dramatically. No yelling. No storming out. It felt more like tossing a towel on the floor after dropping it for the 5th time. So I just walked away. Not angrily. Not proudly. Just quietly. Like I was ashamed of existing. My footsteps sounded too loud on the stairs, and I swear at one point I held my breath because I didn't want her to hear how shaky it was. I reached the laundry room, shut the door behind me, and for some reason the smell of detergent made me want to scream into the dryer. But I didn't. I sat on the cold tile floor, hugging my knees like some sitcom character who lost everything in episode 7. And here's the part one haven't admitted to anyone yet. When I walked out of that room, when I left her standing there with that stupid, unbroken glass, I wasn't leaving because I was angry. I was leaving because I already knew. I didn't know the details. I didn't know the name. But in that moment, God help me, I knew I had already lost her. And the messed up thing? I thought she'd let me go. I thought that was the end. But 3 days later, she would be the one pounding on the door, crying harder than I'd ever seen her cry. And it wouldn't be because she missed me. It would be because the truth finally caught her. I didn't go back upstairs. I didn't sleep. I didn't even turn the lights on. I just sat there in the dark, my back against the dryer, knees pulled up like I was bracing for a tornado. But the tornado wasn't coming. It had already passed. It was the silence that felt unnatural, like the world was holding its breath waiting for something to explode. The next morning, Marla was gone before I even moved. No note. No call. Just her coffee mug in the sink and a single heel left by the front door, like Cinderella ran out of lies too fast. I stared at that heel for a full minute before I grabbed my laptop and did something I'd never done in 6 years of marriage. I checked our phone bill. My hands were shaking so badly I mistyped the password twice. When I finally got in, I didn't even know what I was looking for. Maybe proof I was overthinking, or maybe, deep down, I was hoping to finally stop gaslighting myself. But there it was. One number. Repeated. Dozens of times. Late at night. Lunchtime. Even during family dinner with my parents 2 weekends ago, when she claimed she had a migraine and locked herself in the guest room. I stared at that number until it blurred, then copied it and texted it to myself like a coward, like I needed time to figure out what to do next. I still couldn't breathe properly, so I opened the browser and searched it. The number wasn't listed. Burner, maybe. Or someone who liked privacy, which screamed guilt in neon. That night, I didn't confront her. I couldn't. When she came home around 10:30, still wearing heels but smelling like peppermint and whiskey, I pretended to be asleep on the couch. She didn't even try to fake remorse. She stepped over me like I was a suitcase in her way. And still, I stayed quiet. Not because I believed her anymore. Not because I was scared, but because I needed more. I needed to see it. Because if I was going to shatter, I wanted to make sure there was no chance of glue. So I did the thing every desperate, broken husband swears he'll never do. The next morning, while she was in the shower singing like nothing was wrong, I took her phone. My hands were damp with sweat as I scrolled through apps she never let me touch. And that's when I found it. Not in texts, not in call logs, but in her notes app. A draft. No title. Just 4 words. Tell him after Sunday. My chest collapsed on itself. Tell him. Tell me. Tell him. Tell who what? My stomach turned ice cold. I backed out of the app, placed her phone exactly where it was, and walked outside barefoot, my brain screaming while the world stayed silent. She was going to tell someone something on Sunday, and whatever it was big enough to write down. I knew then I had less than 48 hours to figure it all out before that note became a reality. Before I became the last to know. I couldn't eat, couldn't work, couldn't even look her in the eye without feeling like my skin was being peeled off from the inside. All I could think about were those 4 stupid words. Tell him after Sunday. I replayed them in my head on a loop, over and over, like they were the lyrics to a song written to destroy me. That Friday, she kissed me goodbye on the forehead, like I was some sick dog being put to sleep, and left for work without knowing I'd already decided I was done waiting in the dark. I didn't confront her. I followed her. Yeah, I know how that sounds. I sound crazy, like a jealous, insecure little man. But I wasn't trying to catch her. I just needed the truth to walk up and slap me across the face. And it did. She didn't go to the boutique downtown like she claimed. She took a different turn, drove past 2 lights, and parked near a little coffee shop across town that I'd never even heard her mention before. I sat in my car across the street, sweating bullets even though the engine was off and the windows were cracked. And then he walked in. I swear to God, I felt the moment I saw him. Tall, confident, sunglasses on indoors like a jerk in a movie. He hugged her, not a side hug, not a friend hug. A pull her close, bury his face in her hair hug. She laughed, threw her head back like she was 17 and innocent and the world hadn't burned down yet. And then they sat in a corner booth, leaned close, whispered. Her hands touched his arm the way she used to touch mine when we were first dating. Like every second without contact was wasted time. I don't remember driving home. I don't remember pulling into the garage. But I do remember sitting in the bathroom on the floor for nearly 3 hours, just staring at nothing. My hands were clenched so tight, I left nail marks in my palms. That night, I didn't mention anything. I asked her how her day was. She said, fine. Then asked me what I did, and I said, just some errands. She nodded. No suspicion, no guilt. Just an easy smile like I was the dumbest man alive. I barely slept. My heartbeat was like a ticking clock inside my ribs. I kept replaying that note in her phone. Tell him after Sunday. But now I realized it wasn't meant for me. She wasn't going to confess to me. She was going to confess to him. Tell him something big. That she was leaving me, maybe. That she was pregnant. That they could finally be together. Whatever it was, I wasn't going to wait around and let it blindside me. I needed proof. Not for her. For myself. For my own damn sanity. So I reached out to someone I never thought I'd involve in my marriage. An old friend from college. Works security, freelance private investigator now. I told him everything. Every disturbing detail. He didn't even hesitate. Said he'd get back to me before Sunday. And just like that, I had 2 ticking clocks running side by side. Hers and mine. Saturday was a nightmare disguised as a normal day. Marla acted like everything was fine. No, better than fine. She hummed while folding laundry. She actually asked if I wanted pancakes in the morning. She even put her feet in my lap while watching some crime documentary like we were still the couple that used to finish each other's sentences. I nodded, smiled, and even kissed her shoulder once, all while knowing a stranger was out there somewhere watching her for me. I felt like a villain in my own house, betraying her while she betrayed me, both of us smiling through it like trained actors who forgot what the truth looked like. That evening, while she was in the shower, I checked my phone and saw a message from Liam, the PI. He wrote, "You were right. Got pictures. You'll want to see this in person." My stomach dropped. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at the screen until her voice rang out through the bathroom door, asking if I could hand her a towel. I handed her the towel without looking her in the eye, careful not to let my fingers shake. Sunday came like a loaded gun. I couldn't sit still. I walked the dog 4 times, washed the same plate twice, even pretended to fix a cabinet that didn't need fixing. I was trying to survive the hours until Liam arrived. When he finally did, just after 3 p.m., I told Marla I was going to meet an old friend for a drink. She barely looked up from her phone and said, "Sure, babe. Be safe." The way she said it made me nauseous, like I was a little boy being sent off to school. Liam met me in his car, parked a block over. He handed me a manila envelope and said, "You ready?" I said no, but took it anyway. I opened it, and for the first time in my life, I saw betrayal. Not imagined it, not suspected it, but saw it. Full color, crisp focus. Her, and that guy from the cafe. His arm around her. Her lips on his. Not once. Not quick. But soft, slow, practiced. A second picture. Them in a hotel lobby, 2 nights ago. Her in the same red coat she claimed she wore to work. And one final photo. The one that burned itself into my mind. Marla at a pharmacy counter, handing over a box. A test. Pregnancy test. That's when everything stopped. My chest didn't hurt. It went numb. Like someone had scooped out my lungs and replaced them with static. I remember asking Liam if he was sure it was from this week. He said he timestamped it. Friday morning, 9:22 a.m. I nodded. Said nothing. Just kept staring at the photos like they might rearrange themselves into something more innocent if I blinked enough times. But they didn't. And that's when the final nail hit. Liam looked at me carefully and said, "Ellis, I think she's planning to tell him he's the father." That broke me. Not because it was shocking, but because, deep down, I already knew. That damn note in her phone wasn't about confessing to me. It was about upgrading for me. And the worst part? She still had no idea that I knew. She was home right then, probably painting her nails or picking out a movie for us to watch. Smiling, planning her next lie. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't know, was that I wasn't coming back tonight. And when I finally did, I wouldn't be the same husband she left behind. I didn't go home that night. I parked in a grocery store lot 3 towns over and sat in the car for hours, staring at the ceiling like it held answers I'd missed. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just existed, like a paused video buffering in real life. Around midnight, I checked my phone, 2 texts from Marla. "Everything okay?" And then, an hour later, "Did you fall asleep at Liam's?" I stared at her words, so casual, so rehearsed, and I finally understood something I hadn't wanted to admit. I'd been easy to lie to. Predictable. Forgiving. Weak. She counted on me being the guy who never asks, never pushes, never fights back. And maybe I had been, until now. So I texted back, just one word. Fine. No punctuation. No warmth. Just enough to keep her guessing. Then I turned my phone off and stared into the dark until sleep finally dragged me under like a weight tied to my chest. I woke up at dawn with a stiff neck, a stale taste in my mouth, and a decision I didn't know I was ready to make. I drove home, slow and steady, rehearsing every version of a confrontation in my head, each one worse than the last. But when I walked through the door, she didn't pounce. She didn't accuse. She smiled like nothing had happened and asked if I wanted eggs. I said no. She kissed my cheek. I flinched. She didn't notice. Or maybe she did and chose to ignore it. That day passed like I was trapped inside someone else's body. I watched her walk around in my hoodie, laugh at a podcast, post a stupid photo of our cat on Instagram with the caption, "Lazy Sundays with the boys' 2 hearts." I almost screamed, but I didn't, because the more I waited, the more power I felt. Letting her believe I still didn't know gave me something I hadn't felt in weeks: control. And so I started planning. Quietly, carefully. While she made pasta, I logged into the shared bank account and began transferring funds into a new one in my name only. I rerouted my direct deposit, called an old college buddy who now worked for a law firm 2 states away, and asked him about hypotheticals. He said, "Are you serious?" And I said, "I think I finally am." That night, while Marla slept soundly beside me, her hand resting on my chest like we were still something real, I stared at the ceiling and whispered a promise to myself. I wouldn't scream. I wouldn't beg. I wouldn't cry in front of her again. I was going to let her lie, right up until the moment I tore her whole fantasy apart. I just needed one more confirmation, one more thread to pull. And then, Sunday came, and with it, the truth. Except, not the one I expected. Because the man she was meeting at the cafe, the one in all the pictures, he wasn't a stranger after all. I recognized him the moment I saw his face clearly in Liam's new photo, taken just hours ago. He wasn't a fling. He wasn't some new guy she met at the boutique. He was someone from my life. And when I tell you my blood went cold, I mean it. Because I suddenly understood exactly why she hadn't told me anything yet. Why she whispered, "Not now," that night. Because she wasn't just cheating with anyone. She was cheating with someone who used to call me brother. It was Jesse. Of course it was Jesse. I stared at the photo like my brain refused to connect the dots. Jesse, with the stupid motorcycle he couldn't stop talking about. Jesse, who once got wasted at our wedding and gave a toast about bros before vows, like it was a joke. My best man. My childhood friend. The guy who borrowed money from me to fix his transmission and never paid me back. That Jesse. And now, apparently, the man sharing hotel rooms and pregnancy scares with my wife. The betrayal hit me like I'd been shoved off a cliff in slow motion. Not just by her, but by him too, like my entire past was being used as a weapon against me. I sat in my car gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned bone white, trying not to throw up. Then, suddenly, it wasn't just heartbreak anymore. It was war. I realized I didn't want to just leave. I wanted to destroy the fantasy they'd built on top of my stupidity. So I called Liam and asked if he could do one more thing for me. Something petty. Something sharp. He agreed, no questions asked. Said I wasn't the first man he'd seen go through this kind of thing, just the quietest. That night, I acted normal. I watched a movie with Marla. Even laughed once when she looked at me like I was finally coming back to life. She had no clue what was brewing. No clue I'd already rerouted every account, downloaded every document, printed every message and photo, stored it all on a USB hidden inside the fake outlet cover in my garage. I waited until she fell asleep. Then I took her phone again. I knew the password. It hadn't changed in years. I opened her texts. My hands didn't shake this time. I wasn't afraid of the truth anymore. I was counting on it. There it was. The thread with Jesse. He was saved under a fake name. Camille. I almost laughed. Jesse was many things, but subtle wasn't one of them. I scrolled up, and what I found made my stomach flip. Not just plans. Not just sweet nothings. But mockery. Screenshots of texts I'd sent her. Jokes about how I still think we're working on things. One of the messages read, "He's so passive it's almost sweet. Like I'm cheating on a doormat." That one stayed with me. Burned into me. I copied everything and sent it to myself, then deleted the evidence of my access. She'd never know I'd seen it. Not yet. I went back to bed and stared at the ceiling while she curled up beside me like we were still soulmates. I thought about everything she said in those texts. The lies. The gaslighting. The way she made fun of my silence. What she didn't know, what Jesse didn't know, was that I'd spent the last 48 hours rewriting the ending to this story. She thought I'd snap, confront her, beg her to choose. But no, I was going to let her walk straight into the trap I'd built. One final move. One perfect moment. I even circled the date on our kitchen calendar in red. A week from now, our anniversary. She was planning a quiet night in. But I had other plans. And this time, I wasn't walking away in silence. This time, I was going to make damn sure she heard everything she never thought I'd say. The hardest part wasn't finding out. It was pretending I didn't know. Every moment after that felt like walking barefoot over glass while smiling through it, like I was trapped in a performance I never auditioned for. But I stayed in character. I kissed her forehead when I left for work. I asked about her day over dinner. I even started playing the sweet husband, a little harder just to twist the knife when the time came. It was cruel. I know that. But so was everything she'd done behind my back. And worse, behind my trust. I made a spreadsheet. Yes, a literal spreadsheet. I went through our bank transactions, sorted every time she worked late or had a girls' night, and matched them to hotel charges and GPS pings from her phone's backup. The math didn't lie. Marla and Jesse had been at it for nearly 5 months. 5 months of laughing at me through locked phone screens. I printed it all out, stuck the pages in a bright red folder labeled Happy Anniversary, and slid it into the drawer of the hallway table she always forgot we had. The next few days were almost fun, in a sick, slow-motion kind of way. I caught her smiling at her phone once and asked who she was texting. She said, "Tasha from work." I smiled back. I said, "Tell her I said hi." She laughed. I did too. We looked like a couple in love. Meanwhile, Jessie was texting her things like, "Soon," "Baby," and "Only one more week." He thought she was going to leave me. I think she thought that too. But I already had the papers. No warning. No arguments. Just silence and legal closure. Signed, sealed, prepared by the firm 2 states over, all ready for her to read when the time was right. That time came faster than I expected. The night before our anniversary, she got tipsy over wine and started giggling about how we needed to talk tomorrow. I nodded. Feigned nervousness, played the part like an Oscar winner. The next morning, I left early. I told her I had a surprise. She told me she had one too. I said I couldn't wait. That afternoon, while she was out getting her nails done, and maybe more, I placed everything out on the dining table. The red folder, the photos, the messages, the printed texts, the call logs, and, finally, the envelope with the divorce documents inside. On top of it all, I left my wedding ring. No note, no speech, just the cold, quiet sum of everything she thought I'd never notice. Then I walked out, not with a suitcase, not with drama, just my car keys, a bag with my essentials, and a lease agreement for the short-term apartment I'd signed 2 days ago. I turned my phone off. Let her sit with it. Let her unravel. I didn't want to see the explosion. I didn't need to. I'd already lived through it in slow motion for months. What I wanted now was peace. And maybe, just maybe, to hear that knock on my new door, the one I knew would come once she realized she didn't just lose a husband. She lost the only person who ever stayed when she didn't deserve it. It took 3 days. 3 full days of silence before she showed up. I didn't hear her car pull in, but I knew the knock on my new apartment door wasn't a delivery or a neighbor. I opened it to find her standing there. No makeup, hair tied up, eyes red, holding the red folder in her hand like it had burned her skin. "Ellis," she said, and her voice cracked like glass. "Please, can we talk?" I didn't say anything. Just stepped aside and let her walk in. She stood there in my empty living room, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her, like the lies had finally collapsed under their own weight. She tried to explain. She cried. She blamed confusion, pressure, bad decisions. She said she never meant to lose me. That Jesse didn't mean anything. That she was scared, lonely, stupid. I listened. I didn't interrupt. I let her empty the whole bag of excuses until there was nothing left but silence. And when she finally asked if we could try again, I told her something I hadn't realized I believed until the words left my mouth. I said, "I already have." She looked confused. So I pointed to the framed photo sitting on the bookshelf. It wasn't of her. It was of me, smiling, holding my diploma from a tech certification I'd been too scared to pursue for years. Behind it, a letter of acceptance from a startup I applied to after moving out. "You left me with nothing," I told her, "and it forced me to remember who I was before you." She stood there frozen. I could tell she wanted to scream, to cry, to rewind the clock. But I wasn't hers to rewind anymore. I walked her to the door, gently, no drama, and closed it behind her. That night, I sat on the balcony alone with a drink in my hand and no weight on my chest. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting on someone to love me back. I didn't need to be the background character in my own life anymore. I had myself, and that was finally enough. Maybe someday, someone will come along who sees me, not as something to settle for, but as something they're afraid to lose. But until then, I've already got peace, purpose, and the version of me I thought she took with her. She whispered, "Not now," once. But I said, "Never again," and meant it.